There is a question that haunts every student of history. It is a question that bothers us when we watch the news, and it frustrates us when we look at the state of the world. Why do the bad guys win? Why is it that brutal, incompetent, and corrupt dictators seem to stay in power for decades, dying peacefully in their beds at the age of 90? Meanwhile, the leaders who try to improve the lives of their people, the reformers, the visionaries, the peacemakers, are the ones who get overthrown, exiled, or assassinated. We like to think that politics is a battle of ideas. We think it's about left versus right or freedom versus tyranny. We tell ourselves that if we just had a leader with a good heart, the world would be fixed. But what if I told you that was a lie? What if I told you that the difference between a bloodthirsty tyrant and a beloved president has nothing to do with morality and everything to do with mathematics? Power is not a philosophy. It is a game, and like any game, it has rules. If you break the rules, even for the best of reasons, you lose. And in the game of power, losing doesn't mean you go home. It means you die. Today we are going to open the playbook that every dictator, CEO, and king has used for 5,000 years. We are going to look at the dictator's dilemma. By the end of this video, you will understand why corruption isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. And you will understand why, for a ruler, doing the right thing is often the quickest way to get a bullet in the back of the head. This is the foundational myth we have to shatter. When we look at North Korea, we see Kim Jong-un. When we look at Russia, we see Putin. We say he is powerful. But this is an optical illusion. No human being is strong enough to rule a country. You cannot harvest the crops, police the streets, collect the taxes, and command the army by yourself. To do anything, you need people to do it for you. Imagine you are a budding dictator. You have just seized the palace. You sit on the big chair. Now what? You order the army to arrest your enemies. But why should the general listen to you? You order the treasury to release funds. Why should the clerk open the vault? You're just a sack of meat in a fancy suit. Your power exists only because other people allow it to exist. These people are your keys. In political science, specifically in the work of Bueno de Mesquita and Alastair Smith, the keys are the essential supporters you must keep happy to retain power. In a dictatorship, the number of keys is small. You need the general of the army to shoot protesters, the chief of police to arrest dissidents, the head of the Secret Service to spy on the general and the police chief, and the Minister of Finance to pay them all. Maybe you need a dozen people, maybe 50, but that's it. If you have the loyalty of these 50 people, it doesn't matter if the other 20 million citizens hate your guts. They can starve, they can riot, they can burn down the city. As long as the police chief orders his men to shoot and the general orders his tanks to roll, you stay on the throne. But here is the catch. Here is the dilemma. These keys, they aren't your friends. They are mercenaries. The general doesn't support you because he likes your personality. He supports you because you make him rich. You give him a palace, a Swiss bank account, and the freedom to do whatever he wants. The moment you stop paying him, or the moment someone else offers to pay him more, you are finished. Look at the Roman Empire. The emperor was the most powerful man in the world, arguably a god on earth. Yet look at how they died. Pertinax tried to rein in spending to help the empire's economy. The Praetorian Guard killed him after 86 days. Galba tried to suspend the bonuses paid to the soldiers because the treasury was empty. He was hacked to death in the Forum. The lesson: you dance with the ones who brought you. If the military put you in power, the military can take you out of power. This creates a terrifying reality for any ruler. You are constantly being held hostage by your own inner circle. You have to wake up every morning and ask, did I pay the general enough today? Is the police chief happy? No, because if you look to your left and look to your right, you will see your replacement. The general knows that he controls the tanks. Why should he take orders from you? The only reason he doesn't take the throne himself is that he doesn't know if the other keys will support him. Your job as the dictator is to keep them divided, keep them paid, and keep them scared. This brings us to rule number 2. Control the treasure. To keep the keys happy, you need money. Lots of it. And you need to get it without asking permission. This is why dictatorships love natural resources. Oil, gold, diamonds. These are the dictator's best friends. Why? Because extracting oil doesn't require a happy, educated population. You just need a hole in the ground, some foreign equipment, and a few hundred workers who you can easily replace. If you are the king of Saudi Arabia or the president of Russia, your wealth comes from the ground, not the people. If the price of oil is high, you can pay your general, pay your police chief, and buy yourself a super yacht. The citizens? They are irrelevant. In fact, they are worse than irrelevant. They are a liability. They eat food, they demand rights, they get sick. If they all disappeared tomorrow but the oil pumps kept working, your power would be secure. Compare this to a democracy. In a democracy, there is no oil pot big enough to pay off everyone. The wealth of a democracy comes from the productivity of the citizens. It comes from income tax. To get income tax, you need people to work. To work effectively, they need education, they need roads, they need electricity, they need not to be dying of cholera. So in a democracy, the leader must spend money on the public. Not because they are nice, but because the public is the key. In a democracy, you need millions of votes to stay in power. You can't bribe 60 million people with a Mercedes-Benz. It's mathematically impossible. So you bribe them with public policy. You bribe them with schools, hospitals, and tax cuts. But in a dictatorship, spending money on the people is a waste of resources. Let's imagine you are a dictator, and you have a sudden burst of conscience. You look out your palace window and see your people starving. You see children without books. The roads are full of potholes. You have $1 million in the treasury. You have a choice. You can take that $1 million and build a new hospital wing to save dying children. Or you can take that $1 million and buy a new luxury villa for your general. The moral choice is obvious. Build the hospital. The political choice is also obvious. Buy the villa. Why? Because the dying children cannot overthrow you. They are weak. They have no guns. They have no organization. Their suffering is tragic, but it is not a threat. The general, however, is a threat. If you spend that money on the hospital, the general looks at his bank account and sees nothing. He sees that you are prioritizing the peasants over him. He feels disrespected. He feels underpaid. And then your rival, maybe your brother, or a colonel in the army, whispers in the general's ear, "If I were in charge, I wouldn't waste money on hospitals. I would give it to you." And just like that, the coup begins. This is the trap. This is the dictator's dilemma. Even if you want to be a benevolent dictator, the system punishes you for it. Every dollar you spend on the public is a dollar you are taking away from the people who keep you alive. This explains why resource-rich countries are often the poorest places on earth. Look at the Democratic Republic of Congo. It has trillions of dollars in minerals. The people should be rich, but they are destitute. Why? Because the wealth goes straight from the mines to the keys. It bypasses the population entirely. If the leader of the Congo decided to build world-class universities instead of paying off his generals, he would be dead within a week. Now you might be thinking, well, thank God I don't live in a dictatorship. This doesn't apply to me. Wrong. These rules are universal. They apply to your homeowners association, they apply to your local city council, and they definitely apply to your workplace. Let's look at the modern corporation. It is, structurally, a dictatorship. The CEO is the king. The board of directors are the keys. The employees are the citizens. Why do CEOs get massive bonuses even when the company is failing? Why do they get golden parachutes while thousands of workers get laid off? Because the CEO doesn't answer to the workers. The workers cannot fire him. Only the board of directors can fire him. Therefore, the CEO's job is not to make the employees happy. His job is to make the share price go up so the board makes money. If he has to fire 5,000 workers to raise the stock price by 2%, he will do it. If he doesn't, the board will replace him with someone who will. The evil CEO is just playing by the rules for rulers. If he acts benevolently, if he raises wages at the expense of profits, he is betraying his keys. And in the corporate world, the coup happens in the boardroom. It's the same math, different costumes, same script. So how does it end? How do we break the wheel? We see revolutions on TV. We see the people rising up, storming the palace, and waving flags. It looks like the power of the people. But usually it's not. Remember rule number 1. The people have no power unless the keys let them have it. When you see a successful revolution, like the Arab Spring in Egypt, or the fall of the Soviet Union. It isn't usually because the crowd overpowered the army. It's because the army decided not to shoot. Why would the army do that? Because the dictator ran out of money. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it wasn't an ideological defeat. It was bankruptcy. They couldn't pay the soldiers. They couldn't pay the secret police. And when the checks bounce, the loyalty evaporates. The Keys looked at Gorbachev and said, "You can't guarantee our future anymore." They looked at the crowds and said, "We're not going to massacre our own people for a paycheck that isn't coming." Most revolutions are actually just palace coups disguised as popular uprisings. The Keys decide to switch leaders, and they use the mob as the excuse to push the old guy out. This is why regime change rarely leads to democracy. If you overthrow a dictator but keep the structure the same, where a small group of people control the wealth, you will just get a new dictator. He might wear a different uniform. He might say different slogans. He might promise freedom. But the moment he sits in the chair, the math takes over. He has to pay his keys. He has to plunder the treasure. And the cycle repeats. So is there any hope? Yes. But it's not about finding a good guy. It's about changing the structure. The only way to fix a broken system is to increase the number of keys. You have to make it impossible for the leader to bribe his way to power. You have to make the circle of influence so large that the only way to satisfy everyone is to improve the general welfare of the country. This is what happened in the Industrial Revolution. Suddenly, wealth wasn't just land or gold. It was factories. It was innovation. It was skilled labor. Kings realized they couldn't just enslave people anymore. They needed people to be healthy, educated, and mobile to work the machines. The Keys expanded from a few dozen dukes to thousands of factory owners, merchants, and bankers, and eventually to the workers themselves. When the wealth of a nation depends on the productivity of its people, the ruler must take care of the people, not out of kindness, but out of necessity. This is the democratic peace. It's the reason why, despite all our problems, democracies don't tend to have famines. They don't tend to have mass purges, because killing your taxpayers is bad for business. But here is the final warning. This progress is not guaranteed. The arrow of history does not always point up. We are seeing a trend in the modern world where technology is reversing this dynamic. Automation, AI, and surveillance are making it easier for rulers to control populations with fewer people. If a government can use AI to spy on everyone, they don't need a massive secret police force. If they can use drones to fight wars, they don't need a citizen army. If they can generate wealth through automated financial algorithms, they don't need a productive middle class. The number of keys is shrinking, and as the number of keys shrinks, the dictator's dilemma returns. The incentive to care about you disappears. We are not spectators in this game. We are the chips on the board. And unless we understand the rules, unless we understand that power flows to those who control the treasure, we will be played. The price of liberty is not just vigilance. The price of liberty is understanding the math. What do you think? Are we seeing a return to the era of kings and keys? Or can technology liberate us? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to understand how empires collapse once they fall into this trap, watch this video here.